Hello, and thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of KLASK Pro with BooWee and Teacup. Today we have some exciting announcements and some great conversation ahead of us. And first of all, I just want to start by saying we are back, and we're back better than ever before. Today we're going to talk about that news on why it's better than ever before. We're also going to explain how a little partnership between myself, BooWee, and KLASK occurred. And we're going to be doing it today with our special guest, Ben Green, who is the KLASK Global Marketing and Events Manager. I'm extremely excited to be here. So Ben, BooWee, thanks for having you, being along with me on this video, this episode of KLASK Pro. Before we get into the meat of the topics here, we have a little segment we must do. Okay, it's been a while, and I'm probably more excited about it than I should be. But we're going to talk about what is in our cup. So we'll start with you, Ben. What do you got in your cup today?
Well, technically it's not a cup, but it is a vessel. I've got a nice Birra Moretti from Italy, a nice little lager, but it is chilled. It's straight from the fridge, so we're good.
Very good. All right, how about you, BooWee? What's in your cup?
As you're probably well aware, I've got a different type of bourbon this time. It's Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel, 94 proof, so it's barrel proof. It's tasty. It's good.
Oh, very nice. Okay, well, guys, what was that, Ben?
That might as well have been in French. I understood none of that, other than that it was alcohol and a lot of it.
That is great. Well, guys, so I actually have a couple things in my cup today, not mixed, but there's two things. So I'm going to start out with this one. This here is some champagne that I got especially for celebrating our very first episode with this partnership between KLASK Pro and KLASK. So cheers, guys. So much
Cheers,
excitement
everyone.
to be here. For all of you watching, if you have some champagne to celebrate, jump on it,
Of course. I feel like 90%
Okay.
of the listeners will be sipping champagne as they watch. That's normal, right?
Lot to celebrate today with this episode. And then I just have some Guinness extra stout. That'll kind of be my mainstay for the day. I don't know how much champagne I can drink in an episode, but we'll find out. I do have a whole bottle, so we'll see what goes down. It could be fun. All right, everyone. So yeah, so excited to be here. Our first episode with this revamped KLASK Pro partnership with KLASK. Incredibly exciting. So, Ben, let's just talk a little bit before we get into some of these topics we have prepared today. Let's talk about you. I know everyone's excited to hear about. Yeah, talk about you, your role with KLASK, and et cetera. Excited to hear.
Oh, it's obviously my favourite subject other than KLASK is myself, of course, and sort of for hours. Largely, so my involvement, global marketing, that's everything. We're a small team, largely based out of the Nordics. I'm the black sheep of the family over in the UK. I am learning Finnish very slowly. It's very difficult. I can order myself a milkshake quite comfortably. Not very useful, but I can do it. But yeah, so I with my colleagues, I head up the marketing strategy for KLASK. That involves our social media, that involves our events, the World Championships that we put on, everything. Like there's nothing that I'm not doing for KLASK, but we all muck in. It's a small team, but a nice little family. Cool.
Yeah, awesome. And I know when we initially had discussed this episode and first got this conversation rolling, and I said, "Oh well, Ben, what's your title?" And you're like, "Your title, Ben," And then we landed on a global marketing and events manager, and so I was always a big fan of that conversation. Um, and so yeah, it's great to have you along with us here for this very first episode of revamped KLASK Pro. Excited to get this episode out to all you guys listening today. And Ben, obviously your role is incredibly important with KLASK. you're kind of really overseeing the success of competitive, well, KLASK in general, but competitive play. And BooWee and I think, have talked about this several times in previous episodes, how important competitive play is to KLASK. I think it's paramount to the success of KLASK in the future. So excited to have you here today to discuss what that looks like, both on the inside and outside view. So before we get into what competitive play in KLASK looks like today and what might be coming up, I want to talk about just a little bit about this partnership, because I know we've announced this partnership several months back, and then we kind of went radio silent on everyone. We're like, here's a teaser, and then just wait a while, which wasn't by plan, but it's important that it happened. But we're here today getting this episode released and incredibly excited to do so. But I don't think there's been a lot of transparency on what this partnership is. So I want to just take a few minutes to talk about it. What exactly is this partnership? Our overall excitement as a whole, and then our goals and how it will happen. So, did you kind of want to say what kind of how it all happened from your point of view?
Of course, like obviously you guys have been doing KLASK Pro for, I couldn't tell you how long you'd be able to tell me that, but a long time. And for ourselves, like we recognize that you guys put in a lot of effort. You have some great conversations that kind of normally happen like in like small circles, and this is nice to kind of bring it to everyone, that people that have just got KLASK at Christmas, like they want to know a bit more about like the competitive scene. They want to know a bit more about the kind of background of KLASK, the rules of KLASK. There's so much that you guys have kind of talked about that we as a small team just can't focus on ourselves. We've got so much else going on. So this was kind of a recognition and a thank you to you guys for kind of being that pillar of the community that's kind of helping those conversations along, introducing new people to the community, welcoming them in there. And obviously, if we can help make that happen, that's awesome. So like largely it's a recognition of a job well done. And I think using our platform just allows you guys a bit more of a reach, and hopefully we can together grow the community. So congrats and thanks.
Yeah,
I'd say cheers to
perfect.
that.
And thank you. Yeah, cheers to that. I might have cheers the camera too hard. It's still shaking. My bad. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely incredible. I think it'll go down in my own personal history, the excitement of reading BooWee's message saying, "Hey, have you been on Discord lately? There's a message you should read." And I remember reading it and just getting this overwhelming excitement of the idea of making KLASK Pro a much more official podcast, with competitive KLASK being the forefront of information we talk about. I think, like I said earlier, I think it's incredibly important, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to have some really exciting episodes coming up in the future, especially with a more official partnership, because it does help the reach a little bit. And we're going to be talking to the people who want to hear this stuff. And I think that's going to be incredibly important. We've discussed in private conversations before and in past KLASK Pro episodes that people need a resource for competitive KLASK Pro, which right now we have Discord, which is incredible. Discord's been a huge advantage for growing competitive KLASK play. But I think something like this podcast is kind of that last little bit of necessity. So it's exciting to have it happen and to be here and to make it happen. And obviously we took some time to make sure we had all of the ducks in the row, so to speak, or the biscuits lined up properly, as they say. And I'm glad it's happened. So, what's your thoughts, BooWee? I know you and I haven't had a chance to talk about it too much, but how much excitement do you hold for this partnership?
I love it. I think this is something that I wish would have happened a long time ago. Unfortunately, we were kind of stopped by COVID, but my goals and objectives with the podcast has always been being more on the competitive side, talking about how to get better, strategies, more advanced items. So that's kind of my forte. I love the analytics of it. I love to figure out how to be a better player. And then in addition to having KLASK on our side, in tandem, we're going to be able to get news and information a lot quicker and then out to the public, the folks that want it. So that's the biggest thing for me, which is exciting, is that we're going to get information quicker. We're going to talk about the stuff that we have always talked about. And then at the same time, just like we will probably have some cool, exciting announcements on this episode, on the future episodes, everybody's going to be tuning in because there's going to be nuggets somewhere. So
Absolutely. I think it's well said. Perfect. So with Bowie, with that, you kind of mentioned that you're excited because your focus has always been on KLASK competitive play, and I think that is a perfect opportunity to segue directly into KLASK competitive play. So we have a few things we want to hit here because they're all very important and very exciting. There was announcement. There was an announcement just a few months ago, I think, involving the World Championship. So I think it was big news, very important news, and let's just it's been announced, so I don't have to hold it back. But so there's no World Championship in 2024. It's moved to 2025. Basically, take a year to do qualifiers and other events with the hopes of all the champions meeting up in 2025 to put the World Cup, on the stage again. So, Ben, let's talk about that. Let's get into the decisions there. I mean, when I watched the video and saw the announcement on social media, I mean, I don't even think saying my jaw dropped is proper, because I think it went further down than that. I was really shocked to hear it. So yeah, let's get some insider information as to that decision, and what it means for KLASK competitive play.
So I guess as I said, the idea is 2025 will be our next World Championship. It will be our 5th ever World Championship. Planned to be the biggest one we've ever done. 2023 last year was the biggest one to date. We had 23 people taking part, 21 different nations. For 2025, we expect there to be some more. And we're probably pushing numbers closer to kind of the 30 mark. That's kind of the aim. So that's really cool. If you look at most sports, I think it's biennial. Is that every 2 years? That's kind of the format. It's either every 4 years or every 2 years. And and having run the 2023 championship myself for the first time ever, I can tell you it is a lot of work. And for a small team, like we have a great reach. We're in 40 plus countries, but it takes a huge amount of effort to kind of make that happen. Personally, and the team, like we don't want to get in a position where we're burning out and churning out these championships if we're not able to add value each time. But I think the biggest reason for doing it was we want more countries to be involved, and we want the countries that have got smaller markets to have a better opportunity to find a really strong champion. And generally what happens in the past, we'll announce that we're going to do the championship, and the distributors have got to find one in 6 or 7 months, and it's just not enough time to put on a schedule and then promote it well. And so this really, like, if we look at when we've asked our distributors to provide us with champions this time, we've given it 16 months, and that means that we can hit qualifiers at different times of year that are better for those nations. So for some countries, actually doing winter events is more it's more efficient for them. And actually, before we were kind of writing those off because we only really had the summer months to find champions. So this really allows us to kind of cast the net wider. It gives the distributors a better chance to do a more rounded qualifying schedule, and like the biggest focus is, or the biggest thing to take away from this is the championship maybe in 2025, but qualifiers have started now. So we've in fact we've got our first official qualifier happening. I think it's on I want to say the 15th or the 16th of March over in Canada. And there's another nugget for you. Canada are going to be in the World Championship for the first time ever. That's great. They're the first team to confirm it, and that's cool. That's really they're a huge country, so like why would we not want them involved? But to go back to the previous point, 2023, the only reason they haven't been involved is because they didn't have time to put on the schedule. But now we're actually saying, right, we're starting the schedule in March. We've probably got 16 months thereabouts to put on a championship. So I think that's the key takeaway. Championship's happening in 25, but qualifiers are starting now, and it gives us a much better chance to find the champions. So yeah.
Excellent answer. And I mean, here's the thing. As a competitive player and someone who just really enjoys watching the competitive scene in KLASK, when I had heard the news, like I said, I was a bit shocked, surprised, and to be honest, at first, my first thought was just like, oh, what a terrible idea! Like, I love watching this every year. I look forward to watching it every year. And I was like, oh, this is kind of sad. It almost feels like a step back. But then, as I'm thinking about what happened in 2023 for me, my personal experience with qualifiers, I mean, it was like, I wonder if it's going to happen. I wonder if it's going to happen. And then it was like, here's some dates, and I'm looking at them, and I think we've talked about this privately, but I have a pretty brutal travel schedule for work, and I'm sitting there looking at the dates, and I'm like, I cannot make any of these, like none of them. And actually, Ben, you and I had talked privately and even found some opportunity to maybe create some qualifiers that I could try to get to. And then I realized the one in LA, that kind of the finals for the U.S. champion. I was like, I'm not going to be able to make that date, so let's not worry about it. I'll just take the year off, so to speak. That kind of personal story made me realize that this is a genius idea. Also, kind of what you mentioned, every 2 to 4 years, depending on the sport, other sports. I got to tell you, the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's actually a stroke of genius. I think it adds a lot more opportunity for excitement, and for the qualifiers, what a great opportunity for them too. Depending on when they qualify for the World Championship, they have so much more time to prepare and get ready for what they know is coming. I know for like the U.S. Championship, from the U.S. Championship crown to needing to be there on the stage for the World Championship is not a great deal of time. And the level of competition is different. It's a whole nother level there. So I think it's a great move. I'm excited to see what happens with the new format. And I got to tell you, outside of just entertainment value of having it every year, I think it's all a pro. So it's going to be really cool to see it. BooWee, I was curious, as the better player between us, not that I want to admit it out loud, but he has beat me in every tournament I've played him in. So he is the better player, much more qualified. So what's your view on the idea of this World Championship occurring every 2 years? Which, by the way, doesn't mean that there can only be a U.S. champion every 2 years. I think we could still mess with that in other formats. But as far as World Championship tournaments every 2 years, what's your thoughts, BooWee?
I think at the end of the day, anybody that is extremely competitive always wants the opportunity to present themselves as the best. And so the more frequent that you can have it is the preferred option. We have no control over that, right? If the Olympics wants to do a winter and summer Olympics every 4 years, and that's what you have to do, I think the other half part of my brain, the competitive side, right? And what I am about to say next might be very controversial. So Ben, I'm going to put you Ben, I'm going to put you on the spot here. In a lot of sports, you have a lot of different countries that are involved, but usually when you're talking about, let's say, for instance, tennis, you still have things like world rankings, right? So I guess my question is, if we're looking at it as far as a global type of, competitive play, is there going to be a way for us to, while keeping everybody inclusive into gameplay and competitive gameplay, but then also make sure that the some of the best folks out there are still able to compete versus being limited to one per country? So I guess it's a two-part question, which is, one, will there ever be a time where you might say there's 2, 3, 4 competitors from one single country in the World Championship, or can those competitors, let's say US wants to take the Canada Championship and take the seat, because in certain sports that is an option, right, to qualify. So I know that I haven't actually asked you this, so I'm putting you on the spot, but I guess it's great content.
And I'm prepared. I'm prepared for it. These conversations, for me at least, these aren't new. Like, this is a concern, and it's funny enough. The people that bring it up, normally Americans or the Italians, because the Italians are very, very fucking good at what they do. So like this is a normal question, and like, this isn't a stock response. Like, this is just how it is. So for me, like, this is a world championship. This is not. So you look at tennis. Tennis is an individual player. They may be connected to Serbia or to the UK, but they are playing as themselves. They're not representing a country. That's how I see it. Olympics, you are there representing your country. World Cup football, yes, it's a team, but you are a team playing for the flag, right? So, and KLASK, yes, we're individual players, but ultimately it is a world championship. So, like, for me, it's more important for us to have one champion from each of the nations that's involved, for a world championship to be called a world championship. Otherwise, it's something else. However, as we've done in the past, like, we could do open competitions, right? So, like, Essen have provided a champion before. They could be German, they could be US. They could be, and in fact, the last Essen champion was 2019, prior to COVID. As you know, Filippo Balin. He was crowned champion there and has won himself a trip to Finland for the final. So that's definitely a model that we aren't opposed to. There are associated costs. Obviously, we are a business, so we need to manage those. Otherwise, if money wasn't an option, I'd have an open in Asia, I'd have an open in America, I'd have an open in Europe and South America and all these things, right? So definitely it's something we aren't writing off. It's not something we're in a position to do just yet. However, I don't think you guys are involved. There's a private WhatsApp chat between the champions, the elite, as it were. And we are thinking of doing an unofficial, like, European championship this year. Just you know what, throw it out there. Let's pick a city, go to Milan or go to London and just put something on. Like, it won't be for the World Championship. So we want to make sure that the top players are having something to compete for. Moving to the biennial approach, as I said, it allows us to do more qualifiers and promote them. So, like, there's better competition. So there is these. Another thing that we are probably answering more questions than I need to, but another thing that we are looking at is, I don't know if I should say it. I'm gonna. We're looking at. It's not something we have confirmed just yet. But the best thing about it is, if we don't do it, I know someone that is going to do this anyway with our permission. So, a KLASK app where rankings are involved. Excuse me, I've had too much beer already. But yeah, an app with that mirrors, is it ELO? That's the ranking system like chess uses and stuff like that. But the app, hopefully, it'll be a web app that people can compete and have an actual ranking system that is global. and we will link it with our community map, which we can talk about later. So definitely, this isn't we're just saying no competition is happening in the off years, because that's not the case. But I think that, and maybe the potential of open championships in the future, are to kind of, I think that answers your question. Maybe went off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, that's great. All of that was great. So I understand the concept of open championships or open qualifiers, but let's hypothetically say Seattle is a hop and a skip away from Vancouver, BC, where a Canadian tournament might be held.
Yes.
Can they or can they not compete in that?
So this actually came up for 2023, and it was the first time I had to put pen to paper and make a call. And we, again, because this is under the guise of a world championship, we are saying people can go and compete, but the champion does have to be a citizen of that country. And to me, that makes sense, because we know that America is large, it's huge. They could go to Canada, they could travel to Europe, and the same with people like Italy. Like Italy have got a load of neighbouring countries that actually, if they went to, they're quite likely to do well and to win. And we never want to get to a position where we've got a world championship where only 4 countries but 30 people are represented, right? So we want to make it an international tournament. We want to make sure that the nations with smaller markets are able to provide like their national champion. I think that's really important. We had this. I keep going to this year, but 2023. We had a young chap, 12 years old from Lithuania, compete as the national champion. He held his own. He didn't make it out the group stages. But if we allowed anyone to go and compete in that country, he may not have had that chance to be Lithuania's first ever champion. So I think, to me, that's really important, that we are making sure that we are giving every nation the chance to present their nation's best. So,
if I may add an additional here to this, because somebody will ask this. It has happened in the Olympics where a U.S. citizen who has dual citizenship with, let's say, Japan, and then technically is a U.S. player primarily, but competed in the Olympics in Japan. Maybe you don't have the answer, but
it's some big brain stuff right here. I like it.
Yeah, I think, like, if I go on the ethos that I've presented and say, like, we want a country to be able to present their champion. If you have a dual citizenship and you are a resident of that country, then who am I to say that you're not Japanese if you are in America? But like, it's case by case. If someone really wants to compete that bad and they're able to win, then maybe there's a route for them. But I think as a general rule of thumb, it's a citizen and a resident of the country. But we don't want to stop people competing. In fact, we've got our Finnish champion is off to compete against the Estonians this coming weekend. It's not an official qualifier, but he wants to go and play, and they're going to welcome him there as a neighbouring country and someone that can offer them advice on competitive play, and it helps. So we're never going to get in the way of people competing. We just want to make sure it's fair for the nations.
All right, I'm done with the.
Does this mean BooWee, you want to go to Canada? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I could. It is literally right up there. But you know.
I mean, I'm not going to stop you flying yourself.
He's like cancel Japan. Cancel my Japanese. Get rid of the flight. Get rid of my application to become a resident.
I would love to go to Japan and just play with the folks down over there, but that flight is. I've done the Southeast Asia thing, and it's horrible. And I was young then. My bones now are brittle. My back is going out. I'm getting old, and I need to figure out my first class ticket before I go over to Japan for KLASK.
I tell you what, like it's been amazing to see KLASK in Japan specifically. Obviously, they had their first ever champion sent over this year, 2023, and I think that's so important for the sport to be able to grow, for it to be accessible. Because this game is the most accessible game. Like to me, I feel like it can and is enjoyed by everyone. And that's another subject I'm going to get onto later on, maybe if it comes up. But yeah, so it's been really cool to kind of see Japan's rise. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here to say that we've got some other Southeast Asian countries that we're in discussion with. I'm not going to name them just yet, but I've got a call next week to go through that. And I think we might be able to confirm 2 Southeast Asian countries for the next World Championship, which is amazing. So this is cool.
Oh, you better not say Vietnam, because I've got a house in my name down there, and I got documents for that. So you could.
I was going to butt in and say, don't say Indonesia, because I travel there every year for work.
Oh, so. Somebody's going to buy a cot, a little 10 square foot property.
We have ways.
There is the alternative. You can just win your US championship. You've got the final twice, BooWee.
I'm trying.
One more step.
Trying.
Try better. Try harder.
Well, so real quick though, this is something that I find to be a great topic. So, in 2023 World Championship, which, by the way, you mentioned earlier, it was the biggest, most successful championship to date, which I do not argue in any way. It was incredible. I loved the crowd. I loved the competitors. I loved pretty much all the ref decisions. I think I had a couple questionable ones, which we'll table that for a later conversation. But I mean, it's every sport. Every sport's going to have some questionable referee calls. I get it. But anyway, so I love the commentators. I think it was so fun having the both Kev and Danny in the box doing their thing. I thought that was a really great move. So the reason I bring it up, it was a really successful championship. 2023 was a great championship. But what I wanted to bring up is I think we had, was it 3 Italian players in the championship this year? I know for sure it was 2, but I thought it was 3.
2. So we had Luigi Roone from the world champ now.
Yeah, congrats.
And Filippo. So Filippo won the tournament in Essen 2019.
Okay.
Before the pandemic, so this is October, we had promised that this person would be in the next World Championship, not knowing that the next one would be in 4 years' time. So we honoured that for Filippo. Obviously, he did really, really well. Got himself he didn't get to the semis. He got knocked out in quarters, didn't he? 2 Italians and 2 Polish.
Okay.
Everyone else just had 1. And with the Polish situation, Tomek, as reigning world champion, he was invited to come back.
Yep. Which I think's great. That's how it should be, in my opinion. Yep.
Yeah. And Adam, funny enough, Tomek in Poland, he still competed in his Polish championship. He was advised originally, like there was a bit of beef actually, whatever. But I got contacted by him and said like, oh, I'm kind of being told I shouldn't take part in the Polish championship because they're afraid I'm going to win. And it's like, well, let me talk to them. He's taking part. Like we're just so Adam, who did compete in the world championship this year, was the runner up. So Tomek was successful in retaining his Polish championship, and I think the next day after the world championship, he was flying to compete in the Carcassonne championship again, or he did that at Essen a couple of weeks later. So the guy's a serial competitor, as it were. I digress. Yes, only 2 Italians.
I mean, to be fair, you almost have to compete at every opportunity you get, though, because if you sit out because you're like, oh, I already have a seat, so I'm just going to sit out, you miss on crucial practice opportunity, not
Oh yeah,
only to get your opponents, but to just increase your skill set, which we've talked in previous episodes how important competitive play is just for a personal player to grow their skill set. If you don't have competitive opponents,
yeah.
it's very hard to grow in this sport. Very difficult to grow in this sport.
I
So, tip of the cap to him for saying I'm going to compete even though I have a seat. I think that's a great move.
Of course, it's funny. It's one of the things I'm both privileged and disadvantaged at the same time. So I am lucky enough to travel the world and play some of these amazing players, and as a result, I've learned so much from these players. And like my game is better than it would be had I not.
Mm-hmm.
I come back home, I've got no one to play with, and it's like I really like, and I really I'm trying, and I need some help. So if anyone from the UK is listening, I need some help with this. We need more people playing in the UK because I think we like our champion Rob. He's great, and whenever we get together, like it's great. But like he lives too far away, so yeah. There's a shout out to my UK lot. Help me out, please.
All right, I like it. We have a call for help from UK. Get some more competitive players there, so Ben has some people to at least compete against. I have a feeling you're getting very familiar with what it feels like to win 6-0, or play with your weak hand, or play with your weak hand.
I've been playing with I've played with my left hand more times this year than I played with my right, and I mean, that's cool.
I've done it, yeah.
I
No,
want
it's true. I've done it. I know what it feels like.
to,
Chris, I'm pretty sure you play with your right hand a lot more than on your left.
in fact, I can
When I play you, this is a separate conversation, BooWee. That's different. When I play you, it's different.
bring up my BG stats app because I've been better this year at logging my plays. So
Yeah.
this year, let's have a look. How many times have I played? So I played 8 times in February, and that's not a lot, but it's more than I get to like at home. Like no one's playing at home. I played at 8, and I'm 100% record at the moment. So come and beat me, London.
Viewers, he said 80. Yeah, 8 was typo. He said 80 for sure. He said 80. No, that's great. But this is what's so exciting about having KLASK Pro under the KLASK umbrella is we have an opportunity to discuss this stuff openly and get people even more interested in what they already enjoy, and to have these conversations in a very transparent manner of the fact that we need to grow the sport. We need more competitive players, and we need more competitive players on a regular basis. And playing once a week is great. I love any play I get is great. But if you're able to grow the sport and grow the community and play on a much more regular basis, and not only play, but play people who have a passion to grow their talent, I think it's going to do some very incredible things for the sport of KLASK. These conversations are so important, and people have them. People have them around the table when they're playing. So this is one of the things I'm excited that BooWee and I did very early on. We're like, hey, let's take this conversation onto YouTube and get it out there. And luckily, we got enough people to support us and show us some love. And then eventually you've been sending us a message saying that you're interested in trying to get this a little bit get this KLASK Pro out there a little bit more. And we appreciate that because these conversations are so great to have. And it's important for competitive players to hear them, I think, and hopefully grow their interest in trying to shout the game out. So soon you'll probably have so many competitive players in the UK, you'll regret what you've said today, is what I'm trying to say.
Never. Like, and if I can just add, like one more thing, like obviously the majority of people listening to this, like you guys know KLASK, as in viewers. I'm assuming you're here because you know KLASK and you've watched some competitive play. But every year we have at Christmas, at big touch points in the year, like we have like waves of new people to the game, and like the competitive side of the game is just it's I still feel it's as accessible, and I just want people to know that there are people out there that are wanting to play, and even if your end goal isn't to compete in the World Championship, but is to just get better. Like competitive play is such a way of doing that, and I'm ready. I'm ready to help. Just need the players.
Ben, really, there's at least a fraction of the viewers that are seeing this video right now that actually looked up watching two gorillas fight, and they randomly somehow stumbled upon this video, just like we all have on numerous amount of videos and how we ended up here in the. To go off of your kind of what you were just talking about with KLASK, what is the thing that you can put your finger on if yourself, KLASK, or the folks that are in the community could help with that would turn KLASK into pickleball, right? Like there is a thing that happens in every sport, every business, every show, right? There's shows out there that don't get any type of notoriety or fame, and then they go on Netflix, and all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is the best show ever! Suits is such an awesome show." And I'm just like, dude, I watched Suits like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
What is it that KLASK or yourself needs to do that you think, if it was one thing that you could get, that would just propel the sport?
I mean, like the obvious thing is visibility, right? Like we're in a digital age where everyone has a phone in their pocket, everyone is on social media of some sort, and like so sharing videos is like visibility is huge. We do what we can, and like we pump out videos on TikTok, Instagram, and those, and like I haven't got the magic formula to get every one of our videos viral. Every now and then it happens, and you get a bunch of new people like looking at your thing and be like, "What's the name of the game? What's the," even though it's written on it? It's like, "What's this game? Where do I buy it? What's this game? Where can I get it from?" And that's really cool. That's really exciting that people we've sold like 1 million copies worldwide, which is amazing, but 1 million is nothing when you think about like the world, right? Like there is like I can go to any city in Europe and say, "Have you heard of KLASK?" And 99 people out of 100 are going to go, "No." And the beauty of the game is it's so visual, and it lends itself to kind of like you see it, you like it, right? Like this is exciting, but you play it, it's impossible not to get hooked. Or like impossible, that's such an absolute term, but like I'm yet to find people that play this game that are like, "Nah, this isn't for me." Like it doesn't happen. Like it's so yeah. Like there's lots to be done, but I think like taking games to your friends and like sharing like your clips online, like it seems like a desperate plea for like, please share videos of KLASK online, but like I mean, it helps. Like we have a Discord like channel now. Like we regularly like update like people on what we're posting, and like we see so many people like Sean. Big shout out to him. Like today he's at a Comic-Con in Seattle, and he's walking around with a KLASK helmet, a KLASK shield, and a mobile KLASK trolley. And I just think it's so amazing that he puts this effort in. No one's asking him to do that, and like so there will be another 200 or 300 people that would have seen the game today just because of one person like doing that. I think that's so cool, and like
great advocate.
Oh yeah, like, and for those who don't know, Sean actually was one of the referees this year, or the 2023 championship, and competed in the US nationals. So, but yeah, and I know there are other people like you guys are a great example of that. Like you're good ambassadors or great ambassadors of the game, and like I'd actually turn the question on its head. Like what do people that enjoy the game want from us to be able to help them talk about it and like get more people playing? But yeah, it's a big question. I don't have the answer. But yeah,
I'll tell you this. This is just more of what I've experienced in the more recent time frame. I've been glued to Netflix on this Love is Blind show that I watch, and so it sounds like Teacup's been watching it a little bit. So
I'm going to try not to judge you, my friend. I'm just going to not judge you. It's a great show. I've heard it's a
I'm
great
sure
show.
you've
I'm
watched it
sorry.
plenty of times.
I
Anyways, so
haven't watched it.
here's the thing: is that social experiments work really well, right, on things like TikTok and Instagram. Maybe it would be pretty cool to see a bunch of single people who have to play one round of KLASK. The winner gets to swipe left or right on the person that is the opposite of them. And then they can choose to accept date or go on to the next person.
I feel like there's a step missing because I don't know what Love is Blind. So what you've just explained to me there was a bit of a disconnect. But what I think you're telling me is it's a program where it's a dating program and people, they do challenges. I like social experiments.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, cool.
On a very simple term, what I've seen a lot of these social experiments do on social media is they just have conversations and then they have a buzzer that they just get to click, and the first person that buzzes gets to say, sorry, I'm going to go on the next person. But now it goes down to the KLASK game. I mean, it could work. It could work indirectly.
It could work. I mean, KLASK as a whole. So, in my experience, I'm taking KLASK out to random bars, or other locations, mostly bars. Let's be honest, mostly bars. It's great because we'll just set it up and we'll just kind of play casually, and people will come by and like look, and as soon as I see them stare for more than just a moment, I'm like, jump on, let's see what you have. And it's a really great way. It's a really great indicator to get an idea of the openness of someone and the excitement level of someone, and KLASK. So anyway, BooWee, what I'm trying to say is it would be great to see it on a show like that for competitive purposes. It does sound fun. So does strip KLASK, but we'll get into that in a future episode.
We're gonna have to go on a different platform than YouTube.
No.
That's OnlyFans. Oh my God, great idea.
So, real quick, I'm going to kind of backtrack just a little bit. We have another topic I really want to jump into before we're here too long. But I want to backtrack a little bit with Sean. I believe, BooWee, correct me if I'm wrong, but Sean and kind of some of his friends were our last unofficial podcast, if I'm correct. Is that right? Does that sound good?
I mean,
does that sound accurate?
That's 100% accurate.
Okay, good. Woof. Well, I'm as you said earlier today, I'm aging. My memory's going, and
our backs are going out. Our fingers are not as mobile.
You guys,
the balls aren't moving as fast.
You're peak KLASK athletes right now. Don't tell people you're not.
We gotta set the bar low, so we, No, so yeah, anyway, that was a great episode with Sean and his friends. And I just wanted to say real quick that I agree. Sean's doing some incredible work, and it's so important. And you kind of mentioned it too, is in the initial question was, what is the difference that set aside things like the success, like pickleball scene? I mean, pickleball was a thing like 15 years ago, but it was just like a basic high school sport no one ever really talked about. And I think the difference, and this is something I think the ceiling is incredibly high on, is the idea of community discussion, popularity just within pop culture, and excitement. And I will tell anyone, and I know I'm biased because I'm wearing a KLASK sweatshirt, I'm wearing a KLASK beanie, I got a KLASK banner for my club, I got KLASK down here. I know I'm very biased, okay? I get that. But I will still tell people, regardless of my biases, KLASK is one of the most exciting sports I think that has ever come out. So what I do, just real quick. So one of the things I do when, like you kind of mentioned it, you'll go talk to someone and you'll be like, "Hey, have you heard of KLASK?" And they'll say no. It's happened to I'm pretty sure almost all of us that have tried to get KLASK out there into the public. you will hear a lot of like, what is KLASK? One of my favorite videos to show is a very early video that came out, a little clip between, I believe, I believe they're Danish players, and there's a huge crowd around them. And I think it was 5-5, and they're playing this last point, and the excitement of that last point with this crowd watching, like what's about to happen. It's a very early clip. I will show people that. So, like, for instance, when I try to find a new venue for tournaments, and they're like, oh, I don't know what KLASK is, this is the video that I clip and show them. I attach to the email and say, hey, watch this, and you will see what KLASK is. And almost every time they watch that, they're like, yeah, you could do a tournament here. That looks incredible. Because that's what's exciting, is this intensity. You have a battle of wits. You have a battle of skill. And when you get two good players battling one-on-one, especially when it's a 5-5, like, tell me what's more dramatic in sports. There's almost nothing like it. Like, so when you have something like that to show people and to tell people, like, this is why it's important, KLASK starts to sell itself at that point. And then you add personalities and different people. That's one of the things I love about KLASK, is a lot of us will have like nicknames, the personas, Teacup, which we'll get in on a different episode. But we got, BooWee, and the first world champion, Kev. I mean, all these different personas and nicknames and skill sets. And when you start to add all that into one sphere, KLASK sells itself. And I will never, ever end that preach, because it's incredible. And I'm so happy to have any part of it whatsoever. So to be here talking with you guys, to all of the competitive players, on this channel, like, so incredible. I'm so thankful, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future, because I mean, it always feels like it's just a moment away from being on CNN as like the next big thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just always right there. So very excited to see what we can do, which oddly enough, not that I had this planned, maybe a little, but one of the great things that was recently created to help with this is a community map. So, Ben, I want to take a moment to talk about the I guess, an introduction to the community map, how it started, and then what you think it means. So I'll let you explain it, because obviously you were really one of the main people to help make sure it grew the way that it did. But the community map is incredible. So yeah, let's talk about that.
So actually, like a big kudos and kind of thanks to Crokinole. They have a map that is very similar. Like, people are playing Crokinole all over the world, and essentially this is a very data heavy. Like, it's manual data entry for me, but I don't care, because like it serves purpose. Essentially, it's a place that people can register that they are a KLASK player. It asks for their name. It can be an alias. That's totally fine. Do they have a KLASK board, and what area do they play in? We're not asking for their address, but it's just an easy way for us to kind of like plot a world map of where our KLASK players are. And like, I was to start with, like, I put it onto the Discord, because this was people that I knew were playing a lot, and I wanted to see if like it worked first. And like, it's really cool seeing, like, we've got players in Japan, players in China, players in Serbia, like, and like all around the world, and it's nice to see the kind of these touch points. So now I know that kind of works. I kind of semi-posted it publicly on the US KLASK Facebook page just to see, and like, it's funny that we've got loads of Italians on there, which is cool. Like, loads. But the idea is, like, if I, as a KLASK player, go to Milan next month, I could look at that map and be like, oh wow, there's 4 players there that play regularly. They've got boards. Like, I can drop them a note if they've given me permission on the form to be able to be contacted. I can reach out and be like, I'm going to be in your city for a week. Do you fancy a game of KLASK? Eventually, we're going to have our event schedule on there, where you can buy KLASK. So like, all of these things are just like, it's a community tool. Like, for me, like, it's great to see where these people are, but I'm creating it so that the community know that there are people playing Class, because I feel like there's loads of people out there that have got a board, they really enjoy it, but don't know who they can play with. And actually, if you just have a look on there and you can see, shit, there's 40 people in my city playing this game. Let's set something up. So we've opened it up to the semi-public, and I think I'm probably ready to say, right, let's properly get it out there. So maybe we can put a link on this stream or on YouTube. But yeah, ultimately, it's as good as the data we get. So the more people that use it, the more useful it's going to become. I think we're probably close to like 100 touch points on there at the moment, as in like people that have submitted their forms. It's a 2-minute process to put details. We're very clear, like we don't want people's like addresses. We don't want to know exactly where people live. Like this is just somewhere that people can kind of be like, right, this is my city, like a landmark in my town, whether it's like a corner shop or whatever, just so we can kind of see where people are kind of playing. I don't know if I mentioned, but like we've got club functionality on there as well. So again, I think I've probably got more clubs in Italy than we do have players signed up in Argentina, for example, at the moment. But eventually, like that can grow. So yeah, so Crocodile, it was like we like they've got one, and it was nice to kind of use that as a template to kind of go off. But in truth, it's something that we've been wanting to do as part of the KLASK app for quite some time. But this kind of really puts the onus on the players to kind of tell us like where they're playing and like make something that's useful for the community.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I'm glad it happened. I think it needed to happen. So you guys listening right now, if you're not signed up on there, do yourself a favor, get on there, help this community grow the way that it needs to grow and deserves to grow. I think it's going to be an important piece of the puzzle for overall growth in the next few years. So it's incredibly exciting. No surprise at all that Italy's kind of leading the club and signups on that. Italy's so great and so talented. They're almost the poster child for how to create clubs and how to keep a competitive mindset amongst a group of players, which I'm sure BooWee and I will talk about in a future episode because I think it'll be very important. Hopefully, try to get some of those Italian players on that episode. I know I don't want to keep our listeners here for 5+ hours, even though
I do.
I feel like if a viewer is hanging out for 5+ hours, it's good news for us. You know, we've done our job. So, but with that in mind, there is a few more topics I want to get to, especially before we get to one question, two answers, which is a segment that BooWee and I do every episode. Before I get to that, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the rules and boards,
Okay.
especially coming up between competitive and casual play. So, Ben, I feel like you have some insights here. So let's just open this topic right up and discuss competitive versus casual play when it comes to the rule sets, because obviously the basic casual play rule set doesn't work for competitive play for various reasons. So there is a difference. And then obviously with boards, like what do we do with as far as pieces go, felt, no felt, walls, no walls, things of this nature. So, I really want to get into this one. So what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, that's a very broad topic. Let's hone in on the rules part of things. So yeah, so the question being,
okay, rules first. Rules first.
So is the question, what's the difference between our competitive rules and our casual rules? Is that the first leaping off point?
Yeah. So, great point. Let's drill it down to some specifics. Good point. When it comes to competitive and casual play, let's discuss rules first, which, to be fair, I think everyone listening today is aware of what those differences are and why they're important. So more specifically, let's talk about the development of KLASK competitive play rules. I'm for all of us that are on Discord, this is probably one of the hottest topics there is in relation to class competitive play.
Sure.
So what are we doing? Like, what are your current decisions and moves with creating, I guess, an overall rule set for class competitive play?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to acknowledge is the first kind of competitive rules that were written up were in 2018, and those have largely been the rules that we have adhered to up until the championship that's just gone. But obviously the game has developed so much since then. The biscuits have changed shape since then, and lots has kind of happened. So prior to the 2023 championship, I really kind of sat down. I listened to what the community's kind of like. We've lost him.
I see you.
Am I here?
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, gosh, guys, I am so sorry about that. That was insane. Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about the rule set for competitive versus casual play.
Yeah.
So
I'll just start off.
I think I was going to say, I think as long as you just start into it, we should be good.
That's cool. So yeah, obviously with the competitive rules, the first time it was known that we had competitive rules written out with the rule set. I'm going to start again because that was right. Here's your class. Oh fuck! I've moved my screen, so that's a bit annoying. Anyway, yeah. So the rule set, competitive rule set, first were released in 2018, and largely those are the rule sets that we'd been using right up until the beginning of the championship just gone. So a lot has changed since then. Like, we've had a change in the biscuit shape since then. Obviously, we've had a lot more nations compete, and we've kind of got better at the World Championship. So for 2023, we'd had like a gap where we didn't have a World Championship since 2019. So I kind of took that as an opportunity to right, let's take a look at what the community is saying about the kind of rules that are kind of like fringe rules that happen quite often. And so we've kind of addressed a lot of those. So in the 2023, before the championship started, I kind of gathered the players together and talked about this new kind of rule set. There was nothing in there that kind of ripped up rules that we'd written before, but it was just extra clarification. So I think the biggest one, like loss of control, was a kind of big one. Like, at what point are we saying a loss of control? Is that when the magnet falls over? Is it when it's over the other side? Is it once it's connected? And the new rule set kind of addresses all of those kind of like fringe cases. But the one thing about KLASK, it's a physics game, so like new things happen in this game all the time. The amount of times I'm playing the game and I'm like, what the fuck just happened to the ball there? I think someone sent a picture on Discord the other day where one of the biscuits had like stacked itself on top of another biscuit during play. So like it literally was sitting on top, and I was like, I've never seen that happen. And like, these things kind of happen all the time. So we're never going to have a perfect rule set. But I think the aim of the competitive rules is to kind of really put the onus on the kind of referees. They have final say, and like, I think KLASK, there's this built-in respect in the two players, and we want to make sure that it's as clear as possible without using high-speed cameras, because we just don't have the technology to know at what point the ball left the field and things. So like we're trying to write them as best we can, and for 2025, we've taken on board everything that happened at the 2023 championship. The new rules that we kind of presented, everyone was happy with. There was no kind of real pushback during gameplay. So those are now going to kind of be our ones going forward. But I see them as like an evolving thing, right? Like if we're seeing fringe cases happen more and more, the same fringe case keeps happening, that's something that we then need to address and write into the rules. And like, you see it in all sports, like, controversially or not, like, new things get brought in all the time. It's always with the idea of trying to better the sport. Sometimes there's resistance, sometimes they're not. But really, we're just trying to create a framework that means that if a championship is happening in another country and we're not there to kind of officiate, people are playing the same game. And I think that's really important. Like competitively, when you have a world championship, the pieces are the same, the rule sets are the same, and it's not kind of just, oh, I saw online that actually if this happens, you can do this. And it's like, it's trying to take those cases that people have presented to us and say, right, I'm trying to put, so I should probably give you an example. So I think loss of control is a big one. What happens to Biscuits when the ball leaves the field? And that was I think that's a tricky one to manage. So like to give the context, what happens if a Biscuit lands on your striker after the ball has left the field? And obviously we cannot say exactly at what point that ball left the field of play. So the rule that we've adapted is play on the field will continue in an evasive manner. So if a Biscuit is still bouncing around on that, it is still your job to make sure it's not attaching to your striker. As long as it's an evasive action, i.e. moving away from the Biscuit and not striking them at your opponent, then that's fine. And then once the Biscuits have come to rest, the ball can then be added back into the field. So like that was a big one. There was a lot of grey areas with that, and I think we've come up with a solution now that kind of makes it fair for the players and manageable for the referee, because like ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it so that the game is easily officiated in a sense that people understand that is fair for the players.
Yeah, well, I mean, you bring up a good point, specifically with the ball going out of play, and this is one of the things with competitive play in the rule sets that I have been pretty passionate about myself is there will be, at some point, with the success of KLASK competitive play, there will be at some point people who take advantage of the rule set because it's an advantage.
Yeah.
So even though it's kind of like in like proper football, you have the people who will flop. We all know we know what it is. We know.
I mean, you're talking about soccer, and I'm assuming you mean the term dive. Those are the two.
Yes.
Okay, fine. I had to translate from US English.
Apologies. I wasn't aware of the proper terms.
And you know what? I've completely forgotten. Like I've talked about the ball leaving the field. The biggest one, like I cannot believe, is the intentional removal of Biscuits. Right? Like that phrase is lodged in my brain. Intentional removal of Biscuits.
Yeah.
That is one we absolutely have to get right, but it's almost impossible. And I've had
agreed
many conversations with like our competitive players. One of which, Asger from Denmark, who, for people that don't know, he's a prolific game designer. His job is to make rules, to break rules, and like that's what he does. And every time I bring up a rules question with him, he will make a way to break that rule, and not to be an asshole, but just to prove that KLASK is never going to have a perfect rule set, because it is a game based on physics. Like we cannot predict every single eventuality of what that Biscuit might do. Like we can have Biscuits like pop off the board, hit a wall, and come back on. Like what do we do for that?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are such fringe cases. But anyway, I digress. The kind of intentional removal of Biscuits is probably the biggest one in the sport, where it's kind of a rule or kind of a play that goes against the ethos of the game, which is that it's a fair game played between on an even keel, and like intentionally removing a Biscuit feels like it's dirty play in the context of like diving in soccer or diving in football. Like it's seen as something that can easily be exploited, and we don't want that in the sport. So what we actually did for the 2023 championship is we said Biscuits are going to come off. They do come off in play. And in fact, I watched the final match again just the other day, and in the first 4 points, 8 Biscuits came off as strikers during play. And I watched them so closely, and I have to say they weren't intentional. They were coming off as part of a strike in the ball. So the rule that we made, or that we've committed to, is as long as a player is making an attempt to play a ball or play a Biscuit that's on the field, then we are not going to consider that as an intentional removal of Biscuits. If you are if you've hit the side of the board but there was no ball or no biscuit to play, that's a clear and obvious to us that you are trying to remove.
Mhm.
Of course, I understand that still can be exploited. Like if I've got a biscuit on my striker and I hit the ball as hard as against the wall as I can, the biscuit's likely to fall off. But it's not a guarantee. But there's an attempt. There's playing the ball, and I am happy with that because if the intention is to remove the biscuit, but they're just hitting the ball, that's probably not the optimal play that they want to do if that's their intention, just to remove the biscuit, because that ball could end up anywhere. But if you're playing the ball because you want to play a shot and the biscuit comes off, then to me that's the best we can do with that rule at the moment, without having high-speed cameras or like. But yeah.
Well, I mean, even then, it's important for the ref not to assume the intention of the player.
Of course.
Because then at that point you're almost getting biased, which no one wants. So I think that kind of rule set is important. Is there any? So one of the things early on in class competitive plays that I remember was, and I think it's still there in casual play or casual competitive play, if you will, is this idea that if there's a disagreement between players, you can just reserve the ball. Is that something that is at all considered at these higher levels of tournaments, specifically when there's a ref involved? Do they ever just say, hey, I get that neither of you are agreeing with this. I'm on the fence myself. Let's just replay ball. Is that at all a thing, or are we kind of going away from that and just saying, hey, the refs made this decision, regardless of why, that they made it, so we're moving on?
So the way we see it is, if there is a referee involved and an official involved, ultimately the decision is theirs, and players need to respect what the referee has seen or interpreted. Whether it's the right call, we're talking about cases that there is no right or wrong. It's a judgment. So by having an official, by having a referee, we know that they play the game. We know that there is no bias there. They are not involved in the tournament. They are employed or brought in to be officials, and ultimately it's their call. And like you said in previous editions of the rules and in casual, if the players can't decide what happens, just replay the point. And I think largely that is still there, but hopefully with the official, they can make a quick call. And you'll probably notice a few times in the World Championship, there was a couple of times where a call needs to be made. And I think you said that maybe there was one or two that you may not have agreed with. But if you asked on the whole, I think everyone would agree that the officials did a really good job, and no one player looked, I guess, aggrieved to any decision that was made, because they know that it's been made with the same information that they have seen in front of them, but theirs is so.
No, so just real quick, full transparency, I think in the 2023 World Championship, that is overall very correct. There's a couple that I certainly, and I'm not watching it in real time, so it's very important to know that.
Okay.
I'm not watching it in real time, but from my point of view, watching it, there was a couple calls that I was questionable on, but overall, very happy with everything. And the reason I compare it to, and this is the exception, I compare it to, I think, the 2019 World Championship right before COVID. There was a call, and I think I became semi well known on Reddit before the Reddit page was taken down, and Discord took over. Which, by the way, Discord's better. If you're not on the Discord page for class, get on it. Very simple, just do it. But before Reddit or before Discord, there was the Reddit page, and I think I got a lot of attention for a post.
I'd love to know. Tell us.
Yeah, well, so I got a lot of attention for a post on Reddit that I made in regards to the 2019 World Championship with Giacomo from Italy.
Okay.
There was a loss of control moment in that championship in which he was not awarded the point. And I still today will stand by that he should have either got that point or a reset. One of the two should have happened. That's not what happened. And it's so when I think back of like just questionable decisions and rule sets. It's really the moment that stands out, and maybe in one of these future episodes we can go over it as a specific topic, and I'll dig into it again. But to be fair, in 2023, I did not see anything that intense for me personally, where I was like, you know, where I was like, I don't even want to watch the rest of this match because I'm so mad now, which, hey, to be fair, the rule decisions and the decision by the umpire and stuff, I mean, that's all part of sport. That will never change regardless of how great the rule set is. I often tell people I think tennis is one of the most robust rule sets there is. There's a rule for everything, even how you hold your water bottle. So it's the most robust rule book there is, and there's still moments in tennis where you're like, probably was against the rule, maybe perhaps a little bit. The umpire didn't make the right decision. So that will never change, and I think you kind of mentioned that. I think that's very important, and it would be interesting to see in future competitive play matches, though, where if the umpire, the ref is a little bit unsure, to maybe utilize reserves a little bit more often. But again, as you kind of mentioned, everyone was very happy with all the calls in 2023. And I think seeing it in real time helps with that. If you see it in real time, you're at a different angle. You're seeing it as it happens. So those decisions could certainly be altered by those things. And overall, by the way, I'm happy with 2023 tournament. There was no real controversial call that I was like, oh, this changed the whole tournament. The one in 2019, I'll stand by it until the end of days. I think that might have changed things a little bit, just a little bit,
Good player, Giacomo.
It had, hey, and by the way, this has nothing to do with my $500 bet that Italy was going to win 2019. Okay, it has nothing to do with that.
Do we reckon they're going to? Do we think they've got it in them to retain the? No one's ever retained the World Championship. Do we think? And Tomac has been in the last 3 finals. Obviously,
3, yeah.
won one, lost one. Do we think Luigi has got it in him?
I don't think so. And so here's the thing. I know. So here's the thing. KLASK, this is one of my favorite things about this sport. To retain a championship, even if it was the next day, is incredibly difficult. There is so many things. Not only do you have to have the skill, but you have to hope your opponent makes a mistake somewhere. And then you also have to hope there's this random luck in the realm of physics, okay? Because there is certain things where you're like, that shouldn't have happened, but it did. And I think, and we'll get into this in a future episode, but your mental capacity is huge on KLASK. Like, and it's similar to tennis in this regard. Like, if you start to think I'm losing, even though you're up maybe 5-2, but if you start to go like, oh, I never can get this 6 point, you're in trouble.
I've lost so many games at like 5-0.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how? Just one more point. One more point.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I'm saying. It's such a mental game as well as physical.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important. But here's so you consider all of that. Italy, for sure, I think, is number 1 currently. They have been number 1 in the past handful of tournament years. In my opinion, of course, it's they didn't win the tournament, but they were always number 1 in my eye. So them going back to back, I think, is unlikely. And to be completely honest, if I had to make a bet today, I think should I do this in front of everyone? Because I'm going to get held accountable.
It's amazing because come back to this in 2025 and called it or didn't.
Okay, so to be fair, everyone listening, this is a whole year before the tournament. If I made a bet today, it would be Japan. Yeah, I think they take it. Yeah, I think they take it. I thought the Japan market was going to be huge before it even had KLASK.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the competitive players there would be incredibly competitive once they got a hold of it. And there's nothing that I've seen that makes me think otherwise thus far. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry, Italy. I do love the Italian players, by the way. I do love the Italian players, but going Japan 2025.
There you go.
Or me.
Or
That's
you.
the other option.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bowie.
I guess we'll have to see.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's. I mean, in fairness, what do you guys think? If you had to make a bet today, what would it be on? I'm curious. I'm just curious. No bias. Just I'm curious.
I mean, Japan is a good shout. Like Kohei as a debutant to the World Championship, he was very good. Like, and I've played against him. He is so, what's the word? It's not precise. He means it. Like the shots he makes.
Very calculated.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
like,
calculated.
to be able to do that and to slow the board down in your head and still be able to make those shots under pressure is like, that's a skill you're born with. Like that's real tough. It's like, so, and no disrespect to any players here, but Italy is so strong. I still wouldn't write out that there are other Italian players that could take that throne. So like, I feel like I'm definitely on the international fence here. But I'm going to say, no, fuck it. I'm going to go for it. An Italy win. I'm not going to say that Raiola is going to retain it, but an Italy win.
Okay, yeah, no, cool. What about you, Bowie? What do you think?
Semi-final for the first time. UK in the semi-final this year.
Okay, get a little deeper. I like it.
Yeah, it's tough to name the final winner. I will say this: if I had to make a prediction, and just knowing how brackets typically work, you don't necessarily get 1 and 2 at 1 and 2, right? You might get them at 4 or 6. I will say that I think the final match will either come down to, and I can't wait for us to review this 2 years from now. Oh no, I guess it would be next year sometime, towards the end of the year. I would say it's either U.S. Italy or U.S. Poland.
And this is the final. You're talking
Final match.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, let's
I'm not
go.
saying that those are the best countries that are at the final, but how brackets work.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna have one in your 30 and 29 in your 2. I think that's probably how it'll end up.
All right.
Yeah, well, hey, so you bring on a good point. It's one of those data points. I like to break down data points. I think we talked about this in previous KLASK Pro episodes. A big fan of breaking down data points. That's one data point I haven't broke out yet, though, because there's not a lot of transparency to the knockout brackets or the round robins to create the bracket. I'm curious how often the first person in the knockout round robin bracket actually wins a tournament. I don't think it's very often. And I think it's a very interesting data point I need to break down because I would love to present it on this channel, where it's almost like, hey, go for second or third in the round robin, okay? Because you want to win the tournament. That's what matters. So, yeah, it's an interesting little data point we'll have to break down in a future episode.
I feel like I looked at the bracket from this year, and I want to say that almost 100% of the players that were named first, i.e. that played on that side of the board first, ended up winning the tie. Or I think it was there might have been one anomaly, but if you look at the brackets, the person who is out of the draw first won the round, and like we can verify that another time. But yeah, I remember looking at it and being like, that's weird. So there might be something in it.
Yeah.
We have got, this is kind of an excuse, but we definitely can't go too far into detail, but we may have a very exciting partner for our 2025 World Championship. And they will be very helpful. All I'm going to say is they're going to be very helpful with the data side of things. So I've got a call next week. I can update everyone on Discord, but yeah, that's it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to name who and the details, but yeah, we have some more data available for the next one.
Very exciting. I know we want to get into a couple other things, so I'm going to touch base on this real quick when it comes to rule sets.
Okay.
I'm sure the rule set that do you have the release date for the next one, by the way, or is that still kind of
basically like I'm literally staring at the doc? Like I can click one of these tabs now and I'm looking at the document. I just need to be happy with my job. If I'm happy with what I've done,
Mhm.
I can release this within the next couple of weeks.
okay?
I've got the old set. I've got what we did in 2023, and now I just kind of need to push them together to make them look good. So I like if I commit now, if I say 2 weeks, then I kind of have to do it. So 2 weeks, and then we can have it. Basically,
Okay.
I want it for the beginning of the qualifying schedules, which are like starting from like
Yes.
6 weeks. So like 2 weeks is my goal.
Nope, that makes sense. Well, so I'm going to throw maybe a little curveball into it
Sure.
because I'm curious if this next rule set, because I haven't seen it,
Mm-hmm.
if this next rule set says anything about indirect play when it comes to competitive matches. And what I mean by that is, let's say, actually, I'm going to go into something that was just posted on the KLASK channel a couple days ago.
Okay.
If you have two opponents going head to head as usual, but 2 feet behind one of those opponents is a guy with a huge, very abrasive sign,
Yes.
just holding it up in front of your opponent's face. Which, by the way, BooWee, you are the
He was on the
part of this.
Yeah.
Which BooWee played great. He played like the sign wasn't even there, which is important because as a professional player, that's how you should act. You should be. I don't care what happens around me.
Yep.
In any way, it's just me in my game. But I am curious, is there anything that's going to be in future rule sets that touch base on this? Like, hey, you have to be at least 3 feet behind your opponent if you're going to, because I could imagine a lot of shouting
Mm.
or, some type of other thing to help distract the player's opponent. And again, I don't think competitive plays at that point to where people are going to try to take advantage of situations like that. But I think that huge sign was a start of what could happen. And again, BooWee did great. He did really great, kept composure. But I could see some players that ruining their whole match because it was. Hey, to be completely fair, it was great. I thought it was awesome. I mean, what a way to shout out the person you're going for. But I am curious.
Well, and Ben, before you even answer that, I think U.S. really only has the only championships that has hecklers.
Probably. Probably.
So I would challenge all the world competitors to play in that type of environment and then see who comes out on top. Because it's a very different thing. And the world championships, obviously, you can see it's quiet, it's focused and concentrated. And all of the U.S. championships I've been to, it is insane. And you have people just going at your throat.
So
just real quick, the World Championships do have the commentator out to where the players can listen, which I'm still unsure how I feel about that. Because I would hate to like mess up and then I just immediately hear a commentator like, "Oh, what a stupid move! You went left, he went right." Oh.
Well, the U.S. Championship though has both hecklers and the commentator.
Yeah, true.
So with the World Championship, so the idea of having the commentary pumped out is almost a byproduct of just production. We like so the crowd it's mainly for the crowd. So if you're there, like you'll notice the players on the field, they can hear it, but it's definitely directed towards the crowd, which is much louder for them. So I don't think it's as distraction as you think it could be. But ultimately,
that's good.
Yeah, so ultimately, it's there to better the experience for the crowd and for the presenters and the referee. So that's largely why. The US Championship, so the big old sign you were kind of referring to, it's great. I think the chap's name is Max. One of his fans brought it along. to be the second player on the board, as it were. But we did have like ropes around like the playing area where like weren't allowed inside that area. Like that was like, this is a no-go zone. And I think it was probably around the semi-final mark that someone said to me, I don't know if this is cool, like this could be distracting. So like we did eventually say, like, let's put it down. And like, I get it. Like obviously BooWee, you were on the receiving end of the taunt, and you were able to go for it. But I'd imagine it's quite difficult for some. But in terms of for the competitive rules, I haven't included it in there because ultimately, like again, like we're talking very fringe. But like I think in the beginning of the rules where I talk about the setup of the table and stuff like that, we could probably add a bit in there, which is make sure that there is a competition zone and a fan zone, right? Like, so make sure that they're kind of separated. I think signs and heckling is part of sport these days. Like you go to any.
Me too. Yes, me too. Yes.
That doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean that I think it's fair. But I think it is part and parcel of it. And I think ultimately, again, it comes down to the ref. If the ref thinks it is too distracting, that they're not able to do their job, or they are being unsportsmanlike, then yeah, maybe we can look at it. But it's not something that the player has asked someone to do. So yeah, I think it may be worth a little mention in the rules, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it could be a future rule set. Just one of those things I wanted to bring up in today's conversation. And to be completely honest, those kind of fans, the passionate fans, are crucial to the excessive growth of class. Because the thing is we can't all be professional top tier players. That's just how every sport is. Just not everyone can do it. So when you can't compete at that level, but you want to play or you want to be a part of the community, your next best step is to become the biggest fan and supporter you can. And I think those fans have the right to be as passionate as they want to be, as long as it doesn't really crucially distract or compromise another player. So I think in a future rule set, it'd be important to add. Right now, it's just a fun bit of conversation. But yeah, very good. Well, we could be here all day talking competitive play, KLASK rule sets, and to be completely honest, if you want me to, I will. But in in the care of some of our listeners today, I would like to move on to our next segment, which for people who have not watched our KLASK Pro episodes in the past, we always do a segment near the end of the show called One Question, Two Answers. And essentially what this is we'll take a question from a viewer, whether it be on Discord or the YouTube comments, or even maybe we're at a tournament and someone asked us a question. We'll take that question if we think it deserves some time on the episode. And then both BooWee and I will give an answer. And we'll often invite the guest, in this case, Ben, to give an answer as well, depending on it. So today, though, we don't have a question that we've dug from any specific location, because we wanted to explain the segment instead. So essentially what it is, kind of what I just said, is basically reach out to us. If you have a question, if you have a thought, reach out to us, whether that be direct message, YouTube comment. We prefer the YouTube comments because it helps with algorithm stuff, so very important. But you can send us a direct message. You can do it on Discord, however you feel it is best for you to do so. Send us a message or question, and if we think it deserves some more focus, we'll put it on the episode, and then both BooWee and I will give an answer, and maybe even our guest. So with that said, Ben, since we did not go and reach for a question on Discord or YouTube or direct message, I thought it would be a lot of fun to have you ask BooWee and I a question. So you will be our one question.
Yeah.
And then BooWee and I will give the two answers. What do you say?
I mean, that's fair.
Okay, good.
You've put me on the spot a few times today, but this is probably the hardest one. So I've got to come up with a question that could have two answers.
Yes.
Okay, fine. shit. Like what was like? Can you remember what the last one was, or like an example of?
Oh, yeah. Well, so sometimes we get sometimes the question's very basic, like you know, what do you think of the felt stickers opposed to the tape?
Okay.
It could be a question, or it could be actually one of my more favorite questions we were asking a few episodes back that BooWee and I had a really great kind of debate over was the plexiglass walls around the class board that helps really keep Biscuits in play. So the battle box or whatever. So it could be a question like that, or it could be like, I guess it could be what's your favorite drink, but it's unlikely we would pick that as our question in a future episode.
I've got one. So, KLASK we've had World Championship since 2017. The introduction of KLASK 4-player was around 2019. Do you see a future in competitive 4-player KLASK 2v2?
Good question, Ben. Did one of you guys break a law, by the way? I heard a lot of police sirens all of a sudden.
Yeah, hospital, so that's what you heard.
Fair. No, so yeah, Ben, great question. They do, so this is one of the reasons I love this segment so much is because BooWee and I don't talk about it beforehand. We don't try to influence each other's answers. So these are going to be very independent replies, and I think that's important for this segment. So for me personally, and so yeah, I'll go first, BooWee, if you don't mind, because I'm already on a roll. But yeah, so Ben, I don't see a future in competitive 4-player KLASK. I think 4-player KLASK is how it's currently set up anyway. I think it's perfect for casual play and party. You know, you have a bunch of people at your house for a party, and you're like, hey, let's play some KLASK, but you're like, well, I don't want to get too competitive, too like Teacup's not in the conversation anymore because now he's in KLASK mode. I think 4-player KLASK is a perfect way to just get some play in without there being too much pressure or expectation. You just get to really enjoy the game and playing amongst your friends. So for that reasons, I think KLASK 4-player will probably, in my mind anyway, remain just a casual, fun party game atmosphere type game. Where 2-player KLASK absolutely deserves a spotlight when it comes to competitive play. So there's my answer. No.
Sure. Do you want me to comment on yours, or am I gonna let's hand it over to BooWee, see what he says.
Let's hear BooWee. Let's hear BooWee first.
I think the response to that is it's really all up to KLASK. There will always be an opportunity for competitors in the single stages to want to compete in the doubles, right? Let's just hypothetically in a make-believe world, imagine that KLASK becomes as big as tennis, right? It would be very easy for KLASK to say, hey, we're going to have doubles as well. Here's a 2v2. Would anybody like to do it? Of course there would be. There'd be a lot of hand raises. So for promotional purposes, for advertising, for revenue, if you can blow KLASK up to the size of pickleball tennis, I don't see it as a business decision to not do a 2v2 option. So even in today's landscape, if you gave the option to say, hey, so we have our world championships on the single matches, is anybody interested in competing in the championship for 2v2? Literally every single person that has competed that likes to do that would raise their hand and compete in it. So is there a spot for it? Absolutely. It comes down to if the company wants to put it on or not.
Cool. So we've got a no and a yes. So the reason I brought it up is it was on my agenda for the 2023. We hired a social media manager for the day. She's a good friend of mine, and she filmed a bunch of content with the players and stuff. one of the segments I wanted to do was to see if we could, and I even went as far as asking who wanted to get involved, and I think Italy said yes, and I think Finland also said yes, and maybe UK. So it would have been me and Rob. But I think the idea of just having a 4-player board, like I've played 2v2 on a 4-player board. Yes, obviously, like skill is less prevalent in the 4-player, but there is room to play the game well. And I think if by sharing our lives, like I've had fun playing it, and I think I want to at least try it and like pick a couple of nations, say, right, let's have a very unofficial little tournament and we just play. And so I'm hoping this year I can at least try it out, because I don't think we have a future necessarily as much as we do with the 2-player for it. But I definitely think there's people that would want to get involved just because they enjoy KLASK, and why not have another way of competing? So that's why I asked it. So to you, Chris, you naysayer, you can go. Me and BooWee will go on there. Yeah, you can play yourself on your 2-player board. So yeah, we'll have fun.
No, it's just to be clear, I totally understand it, and I think it's fair. I get it. I'm just here's the problem. I'm just so pro focus on 2-player KLASK
Yeah.
that anything other than that is taking away. So that's me. That's me. But it makes sense, and and to be completely fair, it makes sense. And if it is something that gets focused a little bit more in the future tournaments and stuff, I think it's great. And just like BooWee mentioned with tennis, it is an opportunity for a player who might not shine so much one-on-one. Maybe they're an incredible 2-on-2 player. So, saying no might be a little harsh on my part, but I am completely focused on one-on-one, 1v1. So that's where that came from. So for all of you who are very big fans of the 4-player KLASK, please don't judge me too harshly in the comments below. But if you do, just know that I probably still love you.
I have one more question for you. Have you ever had someone piss themselves on your stream before? No? Let's keep it that way.
Yeah. I'll give you both answers. I'll give you both answers.
Go on then, what are both answers? No.
One, this segment's only one question, not two.
Yeah,
two,
well, I'm gonna.
The answer is no. But if you're gonna piss yourself on stream, I'm also gonna piss myself on stream. That's right there. Right. A lot of champagne today.
What is happening right now?
I'm going for a piss. That is what's happening. Because I don't want to piss myself on stream. This is my home and my toilet's just there. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Ben, great question. I thought that was a perfect way to kind of introduce people to this segment of 1 question, 2 answers. A controversial question, as it turns out. Some heavy disagreements, but totally fair. So great question. And we look forward to, and this is me talking to all of you viewers right now specifically, we look forward to seeing your questions in the comments and on Discord, and then just through regular conversation, because BooWee and I really do appreciate gathering those questions and deciding which ones to bring to this segment. So please look forward to that in future episodes. With that said, this episode is coming to an end. We'll wrap it up here. I'm incredibly excited for this partnership between KLASK Pro and KLASK. I think it's a partnership that needed to happen. It's important for us to be under the KLASK umbrella because the information's there, and the competitive players, I think, will appreciate it. So, yeah, just overall incredibly excited, and a huge thanks to everyone watching, for all of you viewers who watched us before this partnership, and then for all of you viewers today. Like, seriously, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this conversation take place, and I hope you gathered a lot of excitement and information from it. So we look forward to hearing the feedback as these episodes come along. We're going to try to release an episode basically once a month. So hopefully that'll be fun for everyone as we go forward. So I'll try not to talk too much more at this point. Ben, thanks so much for joining us, man. It was such a pleasure to have you here, and your insight and information related to competitive KLASK and KLASK as a whole is so huge. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I feel like waffled on for long time, but there's still loads I didn't bring up. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'm sure it won't be the last time.
It is incredible how I think we could have done another 8 hours, no problem, if we really wanted to. So, yeah, very good. And yeah, BooWee, yeah, thanks for all your work, man. It's so good at this. And do you have any words for our viewers before we sign off?
No, yeah, this is just the first episode, so there's many more to come, and it'll get better and better. You know, give us some grace because it's the first one, but it's going to be awesome. This is going to help grow the community, and at the end of the day, if the community never grows, which I know, Ben, you don't want to hear that, but you know, at the end of the day, if the community never grows in this make-believe world, we still have each other, and you know, the information that we put out, and the help that we get from experienced folks to the newbies is better than nothing. So
Yeah, perfect. Well said. And yeah, so thanks to Ben, BooWee, thank you so much. And for all of you watching today, seriously appreciate it. To no end, thank you so much. And we look forward to being here going forward and making the best of this KLASK Pro podcast. So yeah, super excited. Episode 1 is done. Let's go. Good job, everyone. This is great.